Well, if everybody's ready, I will call the May meeting of the Climate Action Planning Committee to order. Quick phone call for the transcript. Um, First voting members, Matt Nucci,
Here.
Arthur Doyle,
Yeah.
Alex Hasha, that's me, I'm here. Ron Israel is present in the room. Steve Buchan
Here.
and Kim Johnson.
Here.
We also have associate members Hale Smith, who's here, muted, and Anna Morgan Barsamian, who is also here.
Here.
That's right. And we're joined tonight by our municipal energy manager, Kai Miller. Thanks for coming. Okay, a quick item of business for us to warm up with, to vote to approve the April 2026 meetings minutes. Have folks had a chance to review, and do you have any questions or corrections?
Alex, I had just one small correction.
Okay.
You had referred to me as on Zoom when I was actually present. Not initially, but later in the document.
Got it. I'll make a note to correct that later. And was present. So I think we can vote to approve the minutes pending that amendment. I'll entertain motions to that effect.
I vote to approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion from Ron. Any seconds?
Second.
Okay, I'll give that one to Arthur. Roll call vote, Matt,
Approved.
Arthur,
Yes.
Alex, I vote yes, Ron,
Yes.
Stephen Puckett,
Yes.
Kim Johnson.
Yes.
All right, the minutes are approved pending a correction to indicate that Hale Smith was present in person for the meeting. All right. So just a quick heads up before we dive into the next agenda topic, which is Kai's energy manager update. I think his update will tie into several of the subsequent topics on the agenda. And I just want to draw people's attention to a revision I made to the official posted agenda that I apparently neglected to make in the copy for the committee. Items 5 and 6 are a review of the municipal decarbonization roadmap. I originally had that as a draft review. We actually have the final report. It's been distributed, so we'll be reviewing and discussing that, but also the topics updated to include a vote to endorse. So just be aware that we'll be voting on that this evening, as well as the zero emission vehicle first policy draft review and endorsement vote. Okay, so keep that in mind as you listen to Kai tell us everything that's going on. I'll hand it over to you, Kai.
Thank you for your time and thank you for joining tonight. The first item I wanted to talk about is the climate leader community certification that we are pursuing, and it's basically the same status quo as a couple of months ago, in that the last two remaining criteria the town of Milton needs to fulfill are the adoption of the zero emissions vehicle first policy, meaning that the town would prioritize purchasing EVs, electric vehicles, and it's as a townwide policy. That's number one. And the second criterion is adoption of the municipal decarbonization roadmap, which now is complete with review or with comments by Climate Action Planning Committee members that were much appreciated. These two documents will have to be adopted by the select board and the school superintendent. And everything needs to be in order well before June 30th, so we can submit all the necessary documents to the State Department of Energy Resources, which will then review everything, and hopefully Milton will be a climate leader community by fall of this year, after having been a green community since 2010. If and when Milton becomes a climate leader community, it will be one of maybe 40 municipalities statewide. So part of a select group that is that has climate leader status, and that status would unlock more money, up to $1 million for the implementation of energy efficiency and climate projects, and up to $150,000 in technical assistance.
For a grant cycle.
Per grant cycle. Yeah.
There's no guarantee that it will stay the same in the future, but I think the intention is that like a mass save program every 3 years.
Yeah, it wouldn't be an annual thing. I think so far there have been no communities that have been in a position to actually reapply for a new cycle, so.
Because the first cohort was less than 3 years ago. Yeah.
Does the select board have to sign off before June 30th?
Yes. And the town, that's my intention, that's the town administrator's intention. Yeah.
So as a select board advisory committee, I think our job tonight is to start going over this with a diligent eye, and ask some of the questions that they would have. They'll be meeting, I think they'll be discussing it for the first time next week. And we'll have a few other opportunities to meet before the deadline, but yeah, more time is better, I think.
Yeah, any questions on these two documents? Which I believe Alex linked in preparation for this meeting. I should say that the municipal decarbonization roadmap is final, whereas the zero emissions first vehicle policy is not final, though mostly done. The zero emissions first vehicle policy draft is based on the model of Needham, which I think became a climate leader community last year. And town administrator had asked me to research different models, and the Needham models seem to be reasonable to us.
So I don't know how many committee members have had the chance to read through this in detail. It might be helpful to sort of give a high level outline of what's in it, and any kind of headline findings, I think.
Headline findings from the municipal decarbonization roadmap, or from the talking about the zero emissions vehicles first.
Let's start with the decarbonization roadmap.
So the decarbonization roadmap, unlike the climate action plan that you're all tasked with drafting, or was already drafted, the municipal decarbonization roadmap is has a more narrow focus, in that it has the goal of developing a non-binding plan to fully decarbonize municipal operations by 2050. And even more narrow. The building section focuses on those 10 buildings which make up more than 90% of the town's total building emissions, which is why the 4 schools are in there, the town hall, the fire headquarters, but not a building as small as the animal shelter. That was not subject to more thorough analysis. We got a grant, a technical assistance grant from DOER, the Department of Energy Resources, the State Department of Energy Resources, to pay power options, a nonprofit, as a consultant. They were our consultant in drafting this, and they did more of a high level analysis of the trajectory, the pathway towards full decarbonization in municipal operations, rather than doing thorough review or even examination of each of these buildings. So I think this document is very useful and for a bird's eye view. But many of, and one of the more useful parts in it is, if you have the option of looking at it, this table on page 13. On page 13, there's table 6, and it provides a timeline of trigger events, so-called trigger events, that consist of moments in time when the heating and or cooling equipment comes to the end of life and needs to be replaced.
Could you repeat which page it was?
13. And the goal is that, having outlined these trigger events, when the fossil fuel heating equipment needs to be replaced, ideally, we would replace it with electrified heating options. And so you see here that the first school that in this roadmap that would see a replacement of its heating systems would be the Pierce Middle School, which in 2028 could possibly receive a ground source heat pump system. I also have to say that because it's such a high view, because it's such a macro level analysis.
Sorry, could folks mute who are not speaking? I think we're getting some feedback.
Because it's such a high view analysis, I would be cautious to view this as the definitive roadmap or plan. For example, the high school, we just did an in-depth analysis of the high school, a so-called comprehensive building assessment, and the financial projections we got for that on ground source heat pumps were very, very, very high, $50 million. So there might be, this timeline is not set in stone, it might change, but I think it's a useful orientation.
Yeah, I think as the first pass, it's good to have a kind of rough estimate of how long these systems have left, so that we can prioritize what requires focus soonest. I see they're recommending ground source heat pumps across the board, and that's probably because they're the Cadillac of decarbonization options, but they're not the only.
VRF, yeah.
What is VRF?
Variable refrigerant flow heat pumps. That's also a heat pump, and it's I believe an air to refrigerant heat pump.
Is that the sort of standard air source heat pump akin to what most people install in their home?
Actually, it's air to air, if I remember correctly. It's an air to air heat pump source, and it's more, unlike, I mean, it's more for commercial buildings than for residential buildings. It's like an air source heat pump that many people now have in their homes, but it's more complex and can serve more, more and bigger spaces.
Where will the funds to pay for this come from?
So, I will say a small portion, as of now, a small portion can come from state funds.
The $1 billion grant?
For example, yeah, $1 million grant. Ground source heat pump, I learned again yesterday, unlike many of the other climate measures from the Biden era administration, still is alive and has, there's much more time to get a very generous federal tax credit for ground source heat pumps until 2034. So much of the money could come from the federal government. For the ground source heat pumps at least. And I mean,
I would stress that this is equipment that the town must maintain regardless. And so when the existing heating and HVAC systems in the school buildings reaches end of life, the town will be investing significantly one way or another to replace those. And that's the kind of capital intensive project that we have capital planning committees and the school committee and the professional facilities department that manages.
yeah,
And the question will be whether in the final analysis, whether we can make electrification retrofits pencil out as a when probably higher upfront costs, likely lower operating costs, and adding in potential sources of state and federal grant funding. Can we make the decarbonization pathway make financial sense for the town? That will be the challenge. The roadmap sort of tells you which challenges you have to take in what order, by what time. But we're definitely getting to a place here where we need more of that sort of professional support. And I'm happy to report that I learned today the school committee appointed one of their members, Stevie Caldwell, to sit on the Climate Action Planning Committee next year. So we'll have an actual school committee member sitting with us who is in the loop on how the schools make decisions, and hopefully that'll help us collaborate with them more effectively.
A question, if I may?
Yes, please.
Should we be adding under municipal buildings, the Milton Arts Center?
so that's actually news to me. Is the Milton Arts Center a large town-owned building?
It's small.
So that's why it wasn't included in this list. And it's not even, so I only really know Milltown buildings if they show up in this data platform called Mass Energy Insights, which is an energy data platform energy managers like me can use to track usage and greenhouse gas emissions. And I actually don't remember seeing that building in the MEI data. Is it a fairly new building?
No.
No, it's an old library in East Milton that has been leased to the Milton Art population in town, and it is, to the best of my knowledge, maintained by the Central Maintenance Program, the Consolidated Facilities Program.
Okay, it might show up in the system on my end as East Milton Library. Is that possible?
Not anymore. I doubt it. It has not been in that designation for maybe 10 years.
I bet that's what it is though, in the database.
Yeah,
It wouldn't surprise me. Because there's no East Milton Library. So, okay. Right, so if they only included, the largest buildings that make up more than 90% of emissions. So I
Yeah.
think there's a tail of, smaller properties that are not included. But what percentage of townwide emissions comes from the high school alone? You think you?
25.
Yeah, so the schools capture most of it. Buildings.
It will-
Kai, hi, this is Hale. I guess, I fully understand why the consultant focused in on the town schools, since they do make up the majority of the town's carbon emissions. I thought that their analysis of the police station, the library, the town hall were pretty weak. Um, they didn't, the report doesn't provide very much data about them. And in aggregate, they actually represent a fairly significant, portion of town carbon emissions.
Yeah.
So, one of the things I would hope that in subsequent studies, the town could consider is the idea of a network, geothermal network that might connect those buildings in the town center together with a highly efficient geothermal heat pump system.
Yeah, that would be a very big project.
Yeah.
But seems like from this, I think the most valuable takeaway from this for me is the rough timeline, right? So that sounds like kind of a first half of the 2030s project. But we know how long things take, right? So we would probably need to start laying the groundwork for it in the 2020s. But also because it's not something that's kind of, on deck for the next few years. Harder to get people to focus on it.
Mhm.
We will be adding the East Milton Fire Station next year to this, I assume. And I just wanted to note that the Atherton Street Fire Station is not identified as a municipal building. And that's a substantive property.
Yeah, it's so Atherton, it depended here on my end, Atherton Fire Station only makes up 0.56% of the total emissions. Yeah, and we restricted ourselves only to the 10 largest ones.
What page is that you're looking at?
Page 7. So on page 7, you can see what percentage of the total each building makes up.
And that includes all the buildings in the town's portfolio.
Yep.
Right, so they're not left out entirely. They were just,
There it is. Yeah.
they didn't make the cut for, the more in-depth analysis that the largest building.
Oh, there you go. The East Milton Library is still recorded as East Milton Library. Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Any more questions on this?
I think that the section on, the vehicle fleet is, also kind of
Mhm.
helpful for the zero emission vehicle first policy. You want to give us the headline?
Yeah, if you want to go on page 27.
I was gonna ask if the town has always had that many, 197 vehicles, 118 light duty. That seems like a high number to me. Has it always been that?
I actually don't know that, because most of my time is focused on buildings. I was also surprised to see this number in the report. Um, many, if I had to guess, at least some of these are not in use anymore.
I remember glancing at the data in Mass Energy Insight and seeing some like really wacky old
Yeah,
cars in there.
Yep. But there definitely are, I mean, I guess it's fairly obvious that the light duty vehicles are easier to replace with electric vehicles than the heavy duty vehicles. There's not as many heavy duty vehicles out there yet on the market that are competitive with the fossil fuel, with the gas powered heavy duty vehicles as for light duty vehicles. It's just a roadmap outlines how in a first step in the next 11 light duty vehicles may be converted to electric. And as a matter of fact, and I mean, Milton is actually on a good trajectory compared to especially the other municipality I work for, Randolph. There already are a number of EVs, and part of the Green Community Competitive Grant we submitted a month or two ago also included some money for an EV, a Chevrolet Equinox, if I remember correctly. Well, that can be used to bring down the cost, the acquisition cost. And yeah, the projections here are aligned with the full decarbonization scenario by 2050. So in the 2040s, all of the duty vehicles and all of the medium duty vehicles and light duty vehicles will have to be replaced. Yeah.
I guess my only point with that was, is there the best way to decarbonize is not to have the vehicle at all. So is there a crosswalk between, town positions that require vehicles and just to ensure that, it really is, the minimum needed. I assume that it is, but if you're saying that there's older, go ahead.
Yeah, the is it? I think it's a zero emissions first vehicle policy where the possibility, or I guess the goal of encouraging alternative modes of transport is also mentioned. I mean, I'm a biker, you might know that, you might not know that, but I would be the first one to push for municipal bikes for everybody, but I would make myself very unpopular.
Yeah, and I imagine it's entirely within the policy to retire a vehicle without replacing it.
Yes. Yeah, that actually is mentioned in the zero emissions first vehicle policy, if I remember correctly.
Are there any other questions?
I'd just like to say this is very thorough and helpful. I was very impressed with it.
Good to
Yeah,
hear.
I agreed. Obviously, as this goes forward to comments from the select board, having the data bulletproof is obviously really important. So I think back maybe with Stephen who mentioned 156 vehicles sounds like a lot. If that's not actually what's active in the fleet, I think it would behoove us to make sure that we've got the accurate number before submitting this further for review and comments.
They'll pick that up right away.
Is conducting numerous interviews of friends or people that I mean, I think the buildings are the buildings, right? It's I think we've just proven to ourselves that everything is captured in that chart, but if we could tighten up the vehicle number, I think it's in our interest to get approval from the select board.
Yeah.
I
mean,
would
the
second
one-
Matt's comment. I think having a number that looks so obviously wrong would
Yeah,
jeopardize credibility for the whole report.
yeah.
Is it obviously wrong or?
So the number is drawn from the Mass Energy Insight inventory, which is drawn from the town fleet inventory, and it gets updated automatically every year because the moment the town purchases a new vehicle, the state has an automated data transfer through the DMV or the RMV. So I don't think this is too far off.
I think it's clear that the town owns that many vehicles.
Yeah.
And I guess the question is,
Are they operational?
yeah.
Totally, because it gets you the same place, right? Because the timeline would assume 156. Again, I might have the number wrong, but
It's
yeah, it still
assuming we'll
gets
replace them all. which
correct.
we-
Yeah, so we can start from a lower number and then replace actually lower than that, even better.
So that it would
Yeah,
be
again,
good
I just think it's worth checking. That's all.
Agreed.
Mhm.
I mean, it seems
So
to me
in
that
the
you
interest
know,
of structuring our conversation, we have two votes on the agenda. One, and reason we are an advisory committee to the select board, and the select board will be considering both these documents. So I mean, I think nobody's going to be surprised if the climate action planning committee is in favor of this, but I think it's helpful to have a vote on this. With the decarbonization roadmap, I emphasize that the plan is non-binding, so it's a resource for planning. And in the approved select board does not commit the town to do everything that's in the roadmap. It's just an acknowledgement and a statement of intent to use it as a resource to reach these goals. The town's already endorsed the climate goals, which includes municipal decarbonization 2050. So I think it's a straightforward decision for the select board to approve this because it does clear a way to become a climate leader community without like true new mandates for the town. So I think it would be helpful if we voted on this so we could focus more intently on vehicle policy, which I think is more to talk about. Any thoughts about that?
Makes sense.
Would anyone like to make a motion to that effect?
I'll move to approve, I guess, if that's the right terminology.
I think we should recommend to the select board that they approve.
Okay, to recommend to the select board to approve. I make that motion.
I'll second the motion, and I'm assuming in here this includes, Matt, a review of any numbers as discussed previously.
Check.
Yeah, I mean, I think that as this document is used as a resource for further planning, other missing details or the on the ground will change the lifespan of its usefulness.
Yeah, it's a non-binding planning document.
We are not warranting that it's true and correct in every detail. But I think that right. Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Any discussion of the motion? Beyond what I said. Then we'll move to a vote. Matt,
Approved, yes.
Arthur,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Cameron,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that motion carries. Excellent. All right, shall we carry on with the discussion of the zero emission vehicle first policy?
Sure.
Maybe give us another layer of detail about what's in there.
So template you have, let me make sure that I'm looking at the same document as you are. Alex, what would you have sent around?
I sent an email just this afternoon that had a little drive link. I also have a copy of it here. That's helpful.
Yeah, so this draft is mainly based on what Jim wrote, and the core of it, the most important language or the essential language that comes from a template or guidance language from DOER, from the Department of Energy Resources, on what this zero emission first fuel policy needs to include. And among those core principles are the prioritization of battery electric vehicles in the procurement policy, and then in following battery electric vehicles, this is on page 3. We still need to add page numbers. Plug-in hybrid vehicles, then hybrid electric vehicles, and then fourth, the most fuel efficient internal combustion vehicle. Yeah. That's kind of the core of the policy. There also are exemptions, such as any vehicle, a heavy duty vehicle, the gross vehicle weight rating of over 2,500 pounds. Those vehicles are exempt. Emergency response vehicles are exempt.
I don't see the 8,500 pounds.
That's in the definitions that go up, yeah. And there also are further stipulations on planning and how this whole policy isn't only about replacing the fleet, modernizing, but also expanding the infrastructure necessary for battery electric vehicles, such as charging infrastructure, which we are in the process of expanding. Just today about adding electric vehicles charging stations at the Council on Aging, more stations in the town hall parking lot, and a replacement of existing stations at Wharf Street. So that's kind of the broad overview of this policy. Do you have any specific questions?
I have a couple.
Yep.
So on page 3, this is a minor one, just your definition of zero emission vehicles. I was surprised to see plug-in hybrid electric there. I mean, it's not really a zero emission vehicle. So maybe that's just what the state considered zero emission, but I was surprised to see that. But more substantively, I guess in some of these places, it would be nice to have it point to some standard methodology in how they're making determinations of, you know, to select one vehicle or another. It's mostly language that, you know, the town will decide sort of, you know, what's best, but it's there's no sort of standardized methodology of how that would be, or, you know, presentation of that methodology to any sort of group. So uh, to me, it's very, I mean, it's nice. I think this captures a lot, but there there there's no accountability is a harsh word, but there's nothing sort of behind it that really um, uh, ensures that, you know, people are really taking this as seriously as they might. So I was just curious of, you know, your thoughts on, is this how it has to be written to because it won't pass otherwise, or this is just standard language and those things will happen as a matter of course.
Yeah, so the DOER, they do review vehicle acquisitions, and one does have to explain to them when vehicle acquisitions do not match this policy the way DOER understands it. So there is oversight, the Department of Energy Resources. I do also think that they wrote it, they do provide flexibility to towns to write the policy with a certain framework. For example, Cambridge, which is a higher capacity city than Milton, they have some kind of lifetime emissions methodology that they integrate into their vehicle acquisition, and that would be, frankly speaking, out of our league to do it for every vehicle. I don't know how well it's working for Cambridge, but I know they have that. Yeah. I also know that in some cases, departments have real concerns about some of the more fuel efficient vehicles they've purchased. Hybrid police cruisers haven't worked everywhere at all. And that's hearsay. I haven't seen any reports on that, but I have heard these concerns from serious sources. So that's why I think there is some flexibility in this.
But the accountability is, we'll go through currently go through an annual recertification process for green communities, which, as Kai said, involves a review of vehicle purchases, and we have a fuel efficient vehicle policy for green communities, and its accountability is if you pay no attention to it, you lose your green community status. And I imagine it would be the same.
Yeah.
Here. So I'm more concerned on the other end that, like, I think for me to vote to endorse this as a member of the Action Planning Committee, where our charge is to tell the select board what we think is necessary to achieve the goal of net zero by 2050, I think it's obvious what my goal will be. But if I were a select board member, I have a lot of questions about the cost implications and the operational implications of this that I have not started to see the evidence for. Right? So, I mean, we learned from the decarbonization roadmap that we can anticipate about 11 light duty vehicle replacements between now and 2030. It's not an enormous number of vehicles, and they're vehicles that we would have to pay to replace anyway. So this is not 100% new expense, but if those become EVs, are we spending more money or are we saving money, right? I mean, just that level of directional. You could imagine that a slightly higher upfront cost could pay for itself in lower operating costs, depending on where fuel goes and where the price of electricity goes. Um, there's a lot of questions about the cost impact of this, and I wonder, certainly it will get asked by the select board, what information do we have available for them on that?
I think that it's in the past couple of years, it's become clear to most vehicle experts that electric vehicles have lower operate or maintenance costs than fossil fuel vehicles. There are less parts that need to be replaced on a regular basis, so the maintenance costs are lower. That's fairly uncontroversial. When it comes to operating costs, or more specifically fuel costs, there are some states where, thanks to the lower electricity costs, electric vehicles have been a no-brainer for some time. In Massachusetts, it was less clear cut. I think even last year, I remember reading New York Times analysis comparing the EV versus combustion engine trade-off in different states, and Massachusetts was one state where EVs were a bit more expensive when it came to fuel costs than combustion engines. I think the Iran war sure did a job of changing that. I think now the calculation has changed for the better or to the benefit of EVs.
It certainly highlights the uncertainty of projecting future energy costs.
Right. And when it comes to the upfront costs, the acquisition for a long time, EVs were more expensive. Costs have been dropping fairly rapidly. I think now EVs are at cost parity, especially for light duty vehicles, for smaller administrative vehicles. And what really makes them a no-brainer is incentives and grants come into play. The Chevy Equinox that we're trying to get a grant for would be $20,000 after the grant, instead of $35,000 or $40,000, and even $35,000 or $40,000 is a good price for an all-wheel drive car. And the Chevy Equinox is an EV electric vehicle.
I did notice the decarb roadmap had a little line saying state incentives make EV purchases some positive now, and I was wondering what those incentives are. I thought
There's so there is the Green Communities funding, and then there also are I think it's Mass EVIP. That might be it. No, I'm forgetting the grant program name, but the state does have grant funds for electric vehicle acquisition.
one thing that I think would be helpful, I mean, presumably we know what those specific 11 vehicles that they're referring to are. And if for at least some or all of them, if we could say, if we had to replace it today, here's what we would likely buy under our current policy. Here's what we would buy under that emission policy. What's the price difference today? We all know that prices move around over time, but that probably would be a good baseline piece of information to have. And I think also we don't have 11 town chargers. So I'd wonder, how many chargers do you need within the next 5 years to be able to keep those 11 vehicles running. I mean, there's a big difference between, yeah, we drive them hard all day long, 5 days a week, or maybe some of them sit up in a parking lot a bunch of time, in which case maybe we don't need it.
Yeah, as
Yeah.
I think.
That was going to be one of my comments, Alex, was just about the fairly minimal discussion about charging infrastructure in the document. Again, I'm sure you're following a template here, so maybe that's normal, but it's maybe under discussed in the document for the select board, perhaps.
Yeah, so as of now, the town of Milton has 2 stations with a total of 4 ports, if I remember correctly. And we're in discussions to add 2 more additional stations with a total of 6 ports. So in total, by the end of this year, we hope to have 10 ports.
Okay, maybe that could be added to the document, and
I don't know if it
just
needs to be in the policy, but it should, in the kind of
yeah.
packet for the select board, it should be.
Yeah, agreed. And maybe the other comment that I would have is just to, if we're making similar recommendations, proposals in our climate action plan, maybe those could also be referenced just to continue to draw people back to what I think we consider to be, the document that we want more eyes on, more engagement. I know we're peeling these off a bit for the right reason, but to the extent that it could also point back to the work of the climate action plan, I think it's in our interest to do that.
I believe the climate action plan's transportation chapter has adopting a zero emission vehicle policy as one of its near-term priority recommendations. I
Yeah, I
can
thought it
verify
did.
that while we discuss.
Yeah, I thought it did.
2 questions. One is, are police fire vehicles covered under this? And second is, we talked about a list in the buildings document, 190 something vehicles that the town own. Are those, to what extent are those going to be covered?
So to the first question, police and fire administrative vehicles are covered, yes. Police and fire emergency vehicles are exempt. However, police cruisers are exempt only as long as commercial are, as long as efficient alternatives are not commercially available. And that something open for discussion. Because towns are purchasing hybrid police cruisers, electric vehicle police cruisers, and they're not always finding them to be suited to their needs. Sometimes they're content, but in other cases, they're not content. So I think that would be, if we actually got to that point of having to decide whether or not to be more, I guess, dedicated towards replacing police cruisers with EVs, then we would really have to be sure that it would impede police operations. And the second question, on replacing the number of 194 vehicles, it would be bit by bit. Whenever a vehicle comes to the end of its life and it would have to be replaced, then it would have to be replaced with a vehicle in compliance with this policy.
So I've often wondered, like when it says, I think the original wording was when commercially available and practicable. And so that word practicable could do a lot of work there, right? Like if something's commercially available, but the town needs 3 new vehicles and it can afford 3 plug-in hybrid, but something happened in the market and fully electric vehicles now cost 3 times what plug-in hybrid does. Not that's plausible, but suppose we're in that scenario, like, could the town say it's not practicable because the town has a demonstrated need and budget for only one electric goal, so that's inadequate, or are your hands truly tied in that situation?
I think we could include the word practical. I'm a bit surprised that, I thought it was included here somewhere.
That was in the climate leader community guidance for this requirement, remember?
Yeah,
It
it is here, I see it, yeah. It's mentioned, it's just not mentioned right next to the police cruisers, which is why we should maybe include it.
So when it comes to it, the accountability for practical means, is that kind of a negotiation between the town and DOR,
Yeah,
where they'll probably approach it from a sort of a reasonable perspective based on what peer communities are doing.
right,
And the worst case scenario is they take away our climate leader status. Right. I was also wondering, how long do vehicles stay in the town portfolio, right? Do we buy vehicles and like drive them into the ground, keep 25 years? Or are we like, more like leasing and turning them over more frequently, which would impact kind of like when we think about school HVAC placements, we know that if we miss that target, if that thing becomes urgent to replace and we don't do electric, we have locked in 20 years of fossil fuels from a large building.
yeah.
Is it the same with these vehicle replacements where if we don't go electric now, we're locking in till 2045?
Well, under this policy, for most light duty vehicles, as long as they're not police cruisers or emergency response, the replacement would have to be an electric vehicle
Mhm.
and or a plug-in hybrid. I think only an electric vehicle, especially with the new charging stations that are coming.
But I'm just thinking of if there's a vehicle comes up for replacement in 2031, when there still aren't really commercially available options for, say, a police cruiser that meets the requirements of the police department. We buy a fossil fuel police cruiser in 2031. Is that still going to be on the road in 2041, 2051? Or is their lifespan a little shorter than that?
I don't think I can answer that. I don't know. Police cruisers, the only thing I can say about that is that police cruisers definitely do have wear quicker, down quicker than other administrative vehicles.
They probably put in a lot more miles than the administrative vehicles.
Yeah.
And Alex, that goes to page 5 there in maintenance, vehicle maintenance section, or sort of what is the replacement criteria. I'm sure the town must have some sort of schedule. I'm sure they're not driving the cars into the ground. I'm sure there's probably some swap out, but maybe we should look into that. There has to be, because you're talking here about things, it leaking on, is the vehicle leaking? Does it have other problems? So I think maybe digging in a little bit more. When does the town, or how does the town make a decision to either end the lease or to trade it in for something new?
And does this are all the vehicles in this portfolio owned by the town, or do a lease in them?
Good. I actually don't know.
I recall when we first discussed this with the Nick Carnes was still the assistant administrator and was looking into this. I remember he had had some preliminary discussions with I think there's a vehicle maintenance facility at the DPW yard.
Yeah.
They had some preliminary discussions with the staff of that facility about what training or equipment they would need for this transition. Do you know if those conversations progressed?
Yes, I think some, I think the the fleet manager has already taken trainings on EV units. But I'm not certain of that. He definitely is aware of them. And I've forwarded him training opportunities.
Mhm. Do you know, well, no, it's not a full information. Any additional discussion from the committee?
Alex, was this supposed to be just for what the town buys? At some point, we had a conversation about contracts that we have for like the bus company, and to encourage them to have or other types of uh, facility to have a similar type of a policy, or to at least be sensitive towards low carbon vehicles.
Right, so would this policy apply to school buses? And that the town doesn't own its school buses, but contract with a transportation company?
The school buses are exempt because they are heavy duty vehicles. However, there's the sentence here. Exempt vehicles should prioritize vehicle procurement as outlined in this policy. So the word here is should, not must. So it's still a consideration according to this policy. How practical it will be, I'm not sure. Whenever a grant opportunity comes up for electrified school buses, that's something we should think about.
And doesn't the town procure the buses through a contractor?
Oh, my apologies, I did find this sentence here, where the town contracts vehicle services, the town will allow for consideration of contracts and seek out companies that offer the use of electric and fuel efficient vehicles.
Yeah, especially for school buses.
So I think that sounds like the town would have flexibility
Yeah.
if it's enormously expensive compared to status quo.
Right.
It only says should, but it will make sure that the town considers
Yeah.
in the next cycle. And I think the town had just completed a new contract for school buses when we first publicly recommended we consider electric. So, and that was a 3-year contract. So that's probably two more years on that before that comes up again, which means we should really be talking about it a year from. It'll be back on the agenda. And it'd be good that we have a school committee member on the committee next year. So, I mean, it would, I think, be helpful to this policy's chances of adoption for the for this committee to provide a vote of support. what do people need to hear? How would we need to word that support for people to feel uh, comfortable providing that endorsement? Or if not, then like what else do you need to know to get comfortable?
Well, one thought I've seen exercised in the past, Alex, is to provide support in principle.
Hmm.
It signals a direction without it being a mandate.
I think our charge, the way I think about it is this, our charge is to advise the select board on strategies and actions necessary to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. I think decarbonizing the municipal fleet is clearly necessary. Uh, and so our advisory capacity, I think we already have recommended the town adopt a policy such as this in the climate action, and I think it's clearly along with our recommendations. I would vote to endorse it in that sense. If I were a select board member, I would want a little more, with a fiduciary duty, I'd want a little more data. Um, And hopefully there's time to gather a little bit of evidence. I'll ask for it next week. But I think that for me, that wouldn't stop me from voting to recommend it as a necessary step to achieve net zero. Does that make sense?
After this,
The zero emissions first vehicle policy, the core of it comes from the Department of Energy Resources. The town of Needham adjusted it, and so the town administrator and we reviewed it. And I also circulated it among the climate action planning committee. So Steve and Alex took a look at it. Yeah.
I was wondering if it could be tweaked without too much extra work based on the comments that we made tonight. Or definitely select committee.
I think so, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't have specific language in the policy that I am eager to see change. I think it's more like anticipating like questions and having much information ready for them as is practical.
Yep.
Um, I know the vehicle procurement has been kind of delegated to department heads in the past, so there's not like one person you can go to and say, "Your list a vehicle tomorrow, how much more or less would it cost?"
Yeah, there is a fleet manager,
There is?
yeah, Charles Culligan.
Okay. What's his opinion of this?
He's he likes electric vehicles, but he also sees the for charging infrastructure. And yeah,
So is he a fleet manager for DPW or the whole town?
for the whole town.
Oh, okay.
I hope I'm not mistaken on that, but that's what I understand.
But I didn't realize that role existed, but I imagine people will be very interested to know what his perspective is on this and if it's favorable or not. Okay, in the interest of time, should we make a motion to uh, endorse this policy adoption by the select board in some
You make that motion.
uh, do you wanna offer some wording for it for the record? If the wording matters, that I don't want to be the one to pose it.
make a motion for the of support for the zero first vehicle policy adoption by the select board. I don't think we're at a point where we want to be wordsmithing this at right now.
Fair enough. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Matt seconds. All right. Any discussion before we vote? Okay. Matt,
Yes.
Arthur,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
and I vote yes, Alex. All right, thanks everyone. Thanks for a good discussion. So I think move on to the next topic. I think we skipped over the high school building area assessment findings. Is there anything you wanted to add from that?
So I think this is worth briefly mentioning just because it is an in-depth study of the town's largest energy consumer. And I just want to give you an idea of the questions of the high school. This in-depth study identified a set of measures for electrification, which are bigger investments, switching out the gas heating systems, and replace them with ground heat pumps or other types of heat pumps. Those are the more expensive electrification measures that are longer term, but they also made a number of quick fixes, suggestions like recalibrating the settings of the heating schedules, and the savings came up to about $40,000, $30,000 annually, which the facilities department has been able to implement by itself for the most part. So this was a very helpful report at identifying quick fixes. What turned out was that COVID air ventilation preferences from school staff had still been in place. So much of the equipment was running almost 24/7, or at least more that should have been running. And $40,000 comes up to about 2.5% of the town's total annual costs. So just the fixes of the high school, recess schedules on the high school could mean 2% energy savings down the line. Yeah. Because the town in FY, so in fiscal year 2025, the town spent $1,900,000 on energy costs, and $40,000 is about 2.5% of that. Yeah.
And I just want a quick aside that at town meeting this week, the net metering credit contract approved,
Yep.
which will allow the town to basically achieve a 15% discount on electricity costs of
7.5, yeah.
80% of its load.
Yep.
So that's a real material reduction in the cost of electricity for the town.
Yep.
Through some clever deal making. Anything more you wanted to say about the tool? That document is available in our meeting material, Milton High School. So that's available in our shared drive if you want to refer to that
Yep.
in the future.
What it also found, the CBA report, is that transitioning towards ground source heat pumps would cost $50 million. Air to water source heat pumps for like $25 million or $20 million. So these are very, very big investments.
What does replacing the existing equipment with the exact same thing, or it's a
that,
modern equivalent?
yeah,
What's
those
that
num-
cost?
those numbers weren't provided, and I haven't looked into that.
Yes, it's hard to start. I would just wouldn't want people to sort of lead with 25 or 50 million
Yeah.
as if spending zero was an option.
Right.
Although if I had to bet the farm on it, I would guess that ground source heat pumps cost more than a like for like replacement. Just being honest.
Kai, isn't that $50 million for ground source heat pumps without any of the available federal and state credits?
Correct. Yep. Yeah, if the federal tax credits could reduce that by 30%. Yeah.
15 million.
And I think the state could produce it by another 10% or so. Plus, if you got domestic content, that's another 10%. So
Yeah.
there's real potential there.
Yeah, so I think there's a danger if we sort of let that $50 million shocker hang in the air with no context, that people might just say, oh, well, we don't need to think about that.
Yep.
And that's not necessarily the mindset we want when that comes up for discussion, but they're not cheap, that's true. So we discussed the climate leader community's application status and June 30th deadline. And as part of your update, that's agenda topic 7. I want to leave a little time for topic 8, which is the stakeholder education and networking meetings and working group updates, because one of those happened yesterday. That's wrong.
Right.
So I had a little difficulty getting in there.
Want me to say something about that?
Yes, please. And I'm sorry, the video keeps turning itself off. I'm not doing that. All right.
So the Conservation Network Group met yesterday with representatives from Friends of the Blue Hills, Milton Conservation Commission, Ponset River Valley Association, and the Shade Tree Advisory Committee. And we developed a draft mission statement that I hope eventually will go up onto the Climate Action Planning Committee website. The focus of it is to these groups and others will come together periodically to address common problems and advocate for solutions that help conserve land and mitigate the impact of climate change on the town. And the network will provide a forum for its members to share information and disseminate it to town decision makers and everyday citizens. And it will try to work together to provide support for targeted projects that we think are priorities. And we identified 3 or 4 of those. One is a research study to try to identify tree species that will help mitigate the impact of climate change in the Blue Hills. That's being conducted by Friends of the Blue Hills. The second one is a project to look at how to mitigate the impact of stormwater and surface water in the Neponset River Valley on abutting private properties. And the third project, and that's going to be carried out by, the River Valley Association and the Conservation Commission, which already started working on this. And the third project is a project to try to increase and sustain the commitment of the town to support a rapidly diminishing stock of shade trees throughout the town, and also to install new shade trees, since the importance of having shade trees, as many as possible, is the key to both dealing with excessive heat, as we've had for the past couple of days, and also, again, for mitigating and adapting to climate change. So we're going to put together, in addition to the mission plan, an updated action plan that focuses on these three projects, and that tries to put together a very rough global budget for doing them, and seeks to explore the interest in various local, state, possibly regional philanthropic organizations in supporting our work. And the articulation of these projects, as well as the mission statement, I'm hoping can go up as a replacement for what's currently on the website in terms of conservation. But I apologize for my cold.
Which,
That's where we're at. So I'm hoping that the other three groups, waste management, transportation, and buildings, can have similar meetings to flesh out their scope of work and update the Climate Action Plan Committee's website and overall framework, and concretize what we're trying to do as a community.
this is very in the weeds, but I felt some blockage just from like a technology process perspective on keeping the website up to date, because none of us on the committee have direct access to make edits, and sending an email to a person on staff saying like, I'd like you to remove a period in the third sentence of paragraph 2, is not an efficient way to get things done. I came up with a better way of doing it this week. I copied the content of the website into a Google Doc and made the edits there with change tracking, and then sent that to Cassandra Calabro, and the environmental coordinator, and she was happy to make those changes. So I think we can use that process. If we have a page that we'd like to have updated, tell me which page. I can set up a Google Doc for you, and if you make the edits with change tracking, I can help coordinate that update with this. Thank you so much for being here, Kai.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kai.
So before anybody else leaves, since we are getting close to time, I don't want to cut this short, and I know there might be other updates, but the other sort of important, necessary, I'd say, agenda item is the CAPC membership and reappointment discussion. So we're just getting to that time of year where our 1-year terms will be ending at the end of June. So our terms run from July 1st to June 30th. And I need to know who intends to serve another term, who wants to serve another term, and who does not, so that I can coordinate with the various appointing bodies to make sure that we have a well-stocked committee for July. So we don't have to dive into that, but let's discuss that before people disappear. Did you have more you want to say about the meeting yesterday?
No, I'm just hoping that, as we discussed last month, that the other three subcommittees can have a similar meeting over the course of the next year to delve into the
Thank you.
work that they're doing on water. I
Arthur,
think Arthur was planning to have a meeting of the waste management group. Is that right?
that's what I was gonna say.
So we did have a waste management meeting on May 11th, but Arthur couldn't attend because town meeting went over and was happening on that day. So I met with Lauren from Sustainable Milton and Cassandra, the environmental coordinator, and we discussed a few things. Cassandra continues to expand like the compost drop off it's sort of a free town service. So there's now 3 different places where townspeople who aren't subscribed to Black Earth can compost, which is Town Hall, DPW, and there's a parking lot in East Milton. I'm not really sure what that is.
Where is
And
the
then
town hall then?
I wrote down behind Town Hall.
I have to look for it when I leave.
Yeah, I've been meaning to check it out, but I haven't yet. We also have been discussing, the results of like the recycling audit, where our contamination levels keep increasing. And the real big bad on that is plastic bags. So that's kind of like the big message that we want to get across to everyone. And so Cassandra is putting together a leaflet that's going to go in the trash bill that all the residents are going to get next, like I think in like June or July. And so we talked about that. It's going to have on one side basically like no bags, just to be like real blunt about it. And then on the other side, it has more information and like a QR code about the composting. Let's see, what else did we discuss? Oh, and then Lauren and Cassandra are going to collaborate on speaking to the school superintendent about getting composting into the schools, which has been, Lauren has tried that a bunch of times. We have a newish superintendent. I guess that going down, like at some point, is going to be mandatory. So Cassandra wanted to be involved just to kind of make it clear that this was, going to have to happen one way or the other eventually.
Do you know when eventually is? What's the timeline, Pat?
I don't know. I'll find that out and report next meeting. And we just sort of discussed what other towns are doing. For example, there was like a video, the Canton sustainability team was trying to bring their contamination rates down. And they were, so we talked about what other towns are doing to bring down their contamination rates, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But it's hard to get the message out to people.
Yeah, I can share that I'm on a Sustainable Milton board, and we did some goal setting around the composting programs that when it comes to getting composting into the schools, they want to prioritize composting in the kitchens, not the whole school, but in the kitchens of Pierce and Milton High School as a starting focus.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think that takes into account, the relationship building they've done with the town, how supportive the janitorial staff is in a particular building. So those would be impactful places to start.
So I'm just wondering if you can take that information and translate it into like a one plan action. Like you've identified your, your areas of concern, composting, dealing with the recycling and one or two others. But if you can take those and just kind of put a kind of action plan design framework around them, I can send you the model that we're working on for the conservation committee. And maybe that would inspire you to do something similar. But my hope is that for each of these four areas, that we map out where we're going over the next year or two.
Yeah, we have things like that I'm pretty sure we could pull together. That yeah, we've already set some goals.
Yeah, I mean, we released the draft climate action plan in June 25. I think before our terms wrap up, a pass to update it with, our changing thing, since last year would probably be helpful. Otherwise, if anybody leaves the committee and doesn't tell me or doesn't update the document, no one's gonna remember. So, um, I have a couple new and noteworthy things I've had interesting discussions about since last we met, but in the interest of time, let's first have a quick discussion on the reappointment process. I don't need everybody to tell me right now in public whether you would like to be reappointed for next year, but if you know that you don't want to, feel free to share that. And I would ask if you all let me know your intentions as soon as you can. I've already started um, sort of reaching out, trying to recruit people to fill at least our vacancies. And the ones that we currently have and ones that I know will be opening up. So, right, anybody want to say anything to this, or we can have discussion offline as well? Just needs to begin now.
I guess Alex, the first, I'm sorry.
You know, to have a sense of what our priorities are gonna be for the next year.
I think I could tell you what mine would be. That we bring our personal priorities to the work of the committee. And so I certainly you have an opportunity to shape them in this year. Then becoming a climate leader community has been really the organizing drive. And if all goes well, we may get that application in right before the end of our term and go into the next one. But we would be climate leader community in the next term. But it's possible that we can't get approval for the vehicle policy on a short time. The next opportunity to apply for climate leader certification is December 31st. So, possibly half the next term could have some focus on that. We've applied for an EPA plan grant for consultant support to do robust public engagement, as well as partner engagement with town staff, and finalize the climate action plan. I mean, it's in draft form. I think with consulting support, we would take through an approval process with the select and/or town meeting. Those could be focuses just from an administrative level. I personally continue to want to get to a place where the town and community organizations like Sustainable Milton are offering electrification coaching services to us, and that's my new an update on something related to that.
Okay, thanks, that's good.
Arthur, you were going to say something?
No, it was broken up. I didn't quite get everyone, but I wanted to ask about your intention and at least my hope that you'd be continuing, and certainly not only as a member but also as chair.
I plan to stick around. Yes.
All right,
Always,
then I'll stick.
Open to somebody
I'll stick
challenging
around
me
as
for
well.
chairmanship, but
I'll stick around as well if you want me.
nice to hear that, Arthur. Thank you. Okay, I won't force any additional discussion on this. Let me share my new and noteworthy. Uh, I attended the Energize Community Climate Leaders Conference in April, and connected with two groups that are doing interesting things in the realm of residential electrification support for residents. Mass Engine is a nonprofit that supports municipal level climate action, community-based organizations and committees like ours that, there are analogs of us in every town in Massachusetts, and their mission is to create community practice and provide resources that make people like us more successful and effective. So they have run for the last 3 years a program called Plug Metro West, which is sort of regionally focused on a number of communities in the sort of Lexington, Concord, Wayland area up west of Boston. Um, and it is a sort of an outreach campaign where they provide social media content. They provide monthly webinars on electrification topics like solar panels, heat pumps, making use of man-wave services. And depending on the level of community engagement, they also they partner with the Heat Smart Alliance, which is a nonprofit that trains volunteer heat pump coaches. So when I replaced my oil boiler and my home heat pumps, I worked with a coach from the Heat Smart Alliance who helped me evaluate um, uh, contractor proposals, helped me understand what goes into a high quality design that's appropriate for your home and to avoid common pitfalls. So it's not necessary, but it's the participant in the plug-in program, you get access to sort of regional pool of volunteer heat pump coaches. Ideally, we could recruit some ourselves. This would be something we do through Sustainable. So anyway, they're launching a new cohort kind of focused in the middle school, talking to multiple communities down here in our MAPC zone. And it's definitely an option for Milton to participate. The question has been, how small can we get the town back? Because Kai has only 2 days a week in Milton, so what is that? It's 40 hours a month he spends with Milton, and so even like I think they originally had 4 to 6 hours a month as far too much for him to commit to. But it sounds like it'd be less than that, maybe a month, at most an hour a month. It's kind of limited to reviewing content and helping to distribute it through existing newsletter and social media channels. Uh, but anyway, it would be free, provide sustainable, it would be mostly a sustainable effort, but something I'm actively considering. I just don't know how much time I have. I would really like to participate in it. Oh, and the other thing was there's a company that I think Mass Energize is considering partnering with in this plug program called Terawatt, which has a really interesting business model. They basically analyzed the cost profile of a large kind of representative residential solar projects in Massachusetts or in New England, I can't remember exactly where, and found that 25% of typical project costs are the soft costs of sales and design, where, when a solar company um, sends somebody to your house to pitch you a project, uh, they have to do that 5, 6, 7 times before they actually get a contract signed. And the way they manage that risk is often by having those people work on construction. Under the hood, uh, the solar company says, do the project for X, and anything you can get out of the customer above X is yours to keep the commission, right? So there's this, there are kind of disparate incentives that drive up the soft costs of solar installations. Their proposal is they've developed software that can do a lot of that design work remotely with just information that you provide through their website. And they cut out that kind of high pressure sales uh, experience and let you get straight to a quote that you could really take action on. I don't know how real that is, but it's a really exciting aspect because anything that brings down the cost of these projects, I think is going to be really important for adoption to solve. So that's something that I've been talking to Tara about to see if some small scale pilot in Milton could make sense. That's what's got me excited.
Any data, the demand for heat pumps or solar panels and prevalence of heat pumps or solar panels in town?
uh, Disappointing data. There, there is a decarbonization portal that Mass Energize is partnered with Bentley University professors to develop that has more data than was available previously. I haven't had a chance to really review what the data sources are and are they like up to date? Do they cover everything? So I don't know. I know I'm saying, if you're installing not been getting a read, then that saves data. Um,
But
we need more visibility.
we don't really, how should I say?
I could tell you how many pumps there are in town. That's concerning.
So who could, Mass Save, or is there anybody who could?
It's a product to find out. I mean, that's why I don't know.
Understand.
Yeah. But there is this, I can share the data point I just mentioned with you. I'll share it with the whole committee actually, just because I shouldn't be the bottleneck here. I haven't had a chance to look at it carefully, but that is the resource I found out about.
I mean, it seems like there would be some core data points, even on the climate action planning website, that demonstrates, portrays the usage of these alternative
Yeah.
technologies.
I know Mass has been interested in that data and tracking problem for a long time. I worked with them during the pandemic on an initial attempt to gather together available data. And the problem then was it was rarely updated and incomplete. They seem to have done another round of it that looks a lot better. I just don't know what its strengths and weaknesses are. But that's a reason why an organization like Mass Energizes potentially be valuable beyond, you know, the specific thing in their program. It's just connecting with a group that is sort of dealing with the exact same challenges we are, right? All right, it's 20 minutes past normal ending time. I apologize for that. Are there any other comments anybody wants to raise before we adjourn the evening? All right, well, I want to thank you all for your time tonight and for your great questions. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Ron is to adjourn. There's a second. All right, seconds. All in favor? Looks unanimous to me. All right. Good night, everybody.
everyone.
Thank you
Good
again.
night.
Thanks, thank you.
Good night.
Happy holiday
Good night.
weekend, everyone.